Welcome to the HellBound Horror Show. The first film from 1981 that I want to highlight is the often overlooked Deadly Blessing. Now, Deadly Blessing has a lot of things going for it. It's a film about the Amish. It was Sharron Stone's first speaking role. It was directed by Wes Craven, and there's Michael Berryman. What more could you want? If all the horror films from 1981 could be summed up into one simple word, it would be slasher. There were so many slasher films released in 1981 in the wake of monumental hits like Halloween and Friday the 13th. It was the new hot trend, and everyone wanted a piece of the pie. Tonight's film is no exception. Deadly Blessing is a slasher film through and through, but just like most of Wes Craven's work, it elevates itself above the rest in some unique ways. Deadly Blessing was well ahead of its time in certain areas, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's back up and take a look at the synopsis. So Jim here, he's the son of Isaiah, but he ended up leaving the Amish world. Jim still farms on his inherited land next to his family, but his family considers him dead to them because he married Martha, who happens to be outside the Amish faith. Jim's Amish family view Martha as this carrier of evil who will do great harm to their beliefs and traditions. Talk about real family issues. Michael Berryman's character, William, really loves that one band who sings Drive.
Incubus! 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 Incubus!
Anyways, early in the film, Jim's tractor mysteriously starts running on its own in the middle of the night. He goes to check on it, and he's killed off? Okay, wow. Wes Craven really loves that one Hitchcock trick. Wait, you know the one. You set up the audience to believe a particular character is the main character, and then you kill them off. It can be super effective, and it can show the audience that no one is safe. Wes Craven did it in A Nightmare on Elm Street with Tina, and then he did it again with Drew Barrymore's character in Scream. Look, she's even on the front of the poster here. Here, however, this time it's probably done the worst. The death of Jim is anticlimactic. It's a few slow motion shots of a tractor just running him over. And these aren't shots that were filmed for slow motion. No, instead, we get this awful look that a ton of movies used to have, and it hasn't aged well. This film is off to a terrible start. Martha is now left alone in the house next to the Amish families. Her two friends come from out of town to stay with her for a week as she mourns the loss of her husband. Once these three are in the house, bad things start to happen and people start getting killed. This is the setup for the rest of the film, and it has this strange mix of religious horror, giallo, and classic slasher elements. Not to mention we have a heavy focus on phobias like spiders and snakes. It's a weird mixture, but ultimately, it makes this film stand out for the year 1981. It's a breath of fresh air, and I'm honestly surprised more people don't talk about this film. I understand that this film has some major faults, but dang, it's entertaining, fairly well crafted, and pretty well scored. Yes, the beginning is rather slow and it's not super well executed, but the final act is really great. Slow motion deaths are the biggest problem of the film. Also, the score can be a little too on the nose at times. Wes Craven really knows how to frame a shot. Take a look at this one. Look familiar? Yeah, Wes later used that same shot in A Nightmare on Elm Street. This film, at times, feels like a test project for Wes right before he worked on A Nightmare on Elm Street.
I had this really awful nightmare. I dreamed about this man whose skin was all gray like ash.
They talk about dreams a ton in this movie, and it gives off that nightmare vibe. Another interesting note to talk about are all the religious themes that show up throughout the film. Now, I'm not the person to really dive into the subject, but what I find the most interesting is how Wes Craven at one point thought about becoming a preacher. He was raised in a strict Baptist family. So it's possible that Deadly Blessing could be the most personal film that Craven ever worked on.
You see how the glib serpent's tongue deceives you?
Okay, I can't hold it in anymore. We need to talk about the ending because it is insane. The film is 40 years old, and the ending just needs to be talked about, so I'm gonna spoil it. So if you haven't seen this film, go and watch it. It's worth your time. I'm also gonna spoil Sleepaway Camp. You've been warned. This ending is bonkers. The whole film is about this mysterious killer. We get a ton of red herrings, but it turns out that it's actually dual murderers. We have this mother and daughter who live near the property killing everyone. Turns out that the daughter is in love with our lead girl, Martha. The daughter, however, is not actually a biological girl, but instead a trans man. This is 2 years before Sleepaway Camp, so that is freaking amazing. This film has balls. Literally. Deadly Blessing is an underappreciated film by Wes Craven. And I don't think it should be. This film needs to be a cult classic, and more people need to see it. It's not amazing, but it is interesting and entertaining. It's not often boring, and the highlights will keep you engaged. It's especially fun if you're a fan of Craven. You get to see all these little tricks that he took from this film, and he used in later films like A Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream. This film is a breath of fresh air when looking at other films from 1981. I was getting tired of the stale slasher formula, and this movie changed the game enough to make it really enjoyable. It's not perfect, but check it out. As always, thank you so much for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe, and take care.